You're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Denkman. A plethora of social media influencers and more affordable, high-quality products means the quest for so-called perfect skin seems more attainable than ever. But what is perfect skin anyway? And when does caring for our skin start to do us harm? We're going to be talking with a cultural critic about issues like exacting impossible beauty standards and aggressive marketing by beauty and skincare companies. First, though, let's get a baseline medical perspective. Dr. Sarah Sung is a practicing dermatologist in Seattle. Her practice is called The Perk in Ravenna, and she's going to help us set a base layer for when it comes to our health and skin. Dr. Sung, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, Libby, for having me.
What is your definition of healthy skin?
Well, first and foremost, I want to make sure it is free of skin cancer. And then we get on to things like skin or sun damage. You know, there's a lot of things in our environment that can damage our skin, not only the sun, but now growing concerns all the time about pollution. It all matters. And so I'm here to help the patient navigate these concerns and also try to prevent damage as we go forward.
Do most patients come to you with aesthetic concerns in their mind already? Are they coming to you with something that they are bothered by or something they're concerned about when it comes to the way their skin looks?
I think most patients, when they come in for a cosmetic consultation, have something in mind. Like they've noticed sunspots, they've noticed fine lines. The increasing world of Zoom culture has got us all being a little more critical of ourselves. And so I think that highlights concerns often for people. And there's good data that Zoom makes us all look a little less good. And so I think noticing these things primarily drive patients in, but they're also interested in my opinion. But I would say usually their concerns guide the conversation.
How much does social media play a role in your experience in what patients are looking for when they arrive in your office? Are they already looking and considering something in mind that they've seen an influencer talk about, or are they, coming like blank slates?
I would say there's so much influence now of social media. I would say many patients come in and kind of sheepishly admit, I saw this on social media. I'm not sure if it's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I was looking at data, and 71% of people pick up a product that they've seen on social media. And so it is ubiquitous. And so I think there is always a little bit of that coming into the door. But I think patients also know that there's a lot of misinformation on social media, and I feel honored that they come here so that I can help guide them through that myriad of misinformation and some truths for sure.
What types of concerns do you see most in your practice?
I would say most often concerns from a cosmetic perspective, I see things like pigmentation issues, so kind of sun damage over time, from tanning beds before we all knew better, or sun as a kid. And then fine lines. I would say these are still kind of the mainstays of everyday conversation.
What do you consider your responsibility as a provider
Mhm.
when you are listening to concerns, when you're trying to keep somebody's health in mind? What is your responsibility of care to provide for those patients?
Oh, it's a great question and all encompassing. I think, my responsibility as someone who cares for skin is one, to make sure the skin is healthy, but two, also I think to help guide the patient in their search for what is perfect skin. And I think perfect skin is what makes them feel most confident going through their daily lives. And my perfect skin could be different than your perfect skin. And my role is not to push anything on anybody, but more so to just guide them through their options and come to a conclusion with them as to how we can make them feel most confident in the skin they're in.
Do you find that some people have unrealistic expectations of what's possible through medical science, basically because of the images that they see or the expectations that are set by influencers, things like that?
I think in Seattle we're a little lucky. I think the aesthetic in Seattle is more natural, so I would say that's a little bit more rare. I think most patients come in not wanting to look overdone, which certainly helps me because that is not my aesthetic, the overdone aesthetic. So I think generally patients come in with really reasonable expectations, and I'm just here to guide them through how we can get there.
What are your most popular treatments?
Ooh, probably most popular treatment, I would say we do a lot of IPL right now. IPL is laser season, so it's a light device that helps with red and brown spots. As we get into summer, it becomes a little less popular, but I think people being sensitive about sun exposure after their laser treatments. Botox is also pretty fantastic, and really every day I talk about everyday skincare. Like, what can we be doing to help our skin look our best on a day-to-day basis? Because that's sort of where we need to start. If we're doing things in clinic, we would be remiss if we weren't protecting from home as well.
What do you think are the biggest misconceptions about skincare that you wish you could dispel, for people?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say the first one that I think we're trending in the right direction here, but that more is better. That we don't need a 10-step beauty routine to make our skin look its best. I think there are certain um, items in the skincare routine, right? I'm gonna sound predictable here. Sunscreen every day, vitamin C. There's some things that we can do on an everyday basis, but we do not need a 10-step process. I think that's one of the things I like to dispel most because oftentimes we can see problems from that. We see things like contact dermatitis, irritation of the skin, and the first thing I do usually for these patients is pare down. Less can be more. If we're talking about tried and true and effective skincare, we do not need 20 steps.
For many, I think happiness is intertwined with how attractive we think we are, right? And
Mhm.
part of what you're doing is sort of trying to unite somebody's outward appearance with how their hopes are for, how they present to the world. I mean, that is like a really, we're talking about skin here, but it's really deep. I mean, the practice of trying to like provide that service to somebody. I mean, do you ever think of it as like a form of mental health care?
I think it is absolutely a form of mental health care. Like how we feel about how we present ourselves to the world drives our confidence. It drives how we feel about ourselves every day. So I do think it's a great responsibility, and I think it's an honor to be able to help patients feel their best as they go throughout their days.
Dr. Sarah Sung, her practice in Ravenna is called The Perk. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Libby, for having me. I appreciate you.
And now let me turn to more of a cultural voice on this issue, somebody who covers the beauty industry. Arabelle Sicardi is somebody who thinks about these questions a lot. They're a former beauty editor at BuzzFeed and the author of The House of Beauty: Lessons from the Image Industry. They write the Substack newsletter, You've Got Lipstick on Your Chin. Arabelle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat and gossip.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing I love more, like in terms of the way that I spend time online, than to think about these issues around the beauty industry. And I felt a kindred spirit when I read the introduction to your newsletter, You've Got Lipstick on Your Chin. And I'm just going to quote here. You say, beauty is my favorite mythology. And you liken messages from the beauty industry to bedtime stories. And you point out that really there's like no opting out or unsubscribing from the consequences of how we appear in our daily lives. So I just wonder if you could expand on what you mean that beauty is your favorite mythology and why you believe that.
I love thinking about beauty like this intergenerational, cross-generational, global story that we tell each other because that's ultimately what it is, right? There's uh, a million different hacks. There's a million different tips and like belief systems that kind of get sandwiched into how we treat each other and our desire systems around what looks good, what doesn't, what's professional, what isn't, what's sexy, what's cute, what's passe. All of these are stories that we're telling and confirming for each other. They're cultural codes that are changing constantly. That's what a beauty trend is. And for me, I just find it so revealing and interesting how these keep changing and moving faster than the speed of light. Like that stuff kind of bakes itself into our daily life. It's a language that we learn every day, no matter our age. And you can share stories about beauty no matter where you are in the world.
You've been covering the beauty industry for a decade or more. What draws you to it? What draws you to covering this?
I am always rooting for the underdog, and the beauty industry is really seen as this often dismissed industry full of service workers who are considered less than. Anything that's considered like a feminine labor is always dismissed, right? And there's always these ideas like beauty's only skin deep, you shouldn't worry about it, or this, that, and the other thing. People minimize the consequences of beauty or the lack of it all the time. And I think that does a lot of disservice to people that are dismissed for not adhering to or meeting the beauty standards of their space and time, right? And so for me, I'm always looking for the ways that we can take care of each other and lift each other up and support each other. And for me, I think I always just find safety in like the girls in the girls' bathroom at a bar. Like it's just like that easy reach for human connection and generosity from a perfect stranger. And beauty often offers like that improbable tenderness in a daily experience. And I'm always looking for those moments of, I don't know you, I don't need to, but I'm going to take care of you for just 1 second. And that's what beauty does for me anyway. So I'm always looking at the industry as like this snakes and ladders game of like, yes, it can be exploitative. Yes, it's trying to get all the money out of you. Yes, it's telling you that you need this, that, and the other thing. But on a person to person level, you can also find humanity and care with another person. And so that contrast, that like give and take is just, it's enlivening to me. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. And, it's the story that I chase wherever I am all my life.
Yeah, the care and community found in a woman's bathroom, like at the mirror, when you're all kind of talking and connecting and maybe sharing products. What do you think perfect skin means in our modern context, and what does it represent in your mind?
Perfect skin is like this mirage of frictionless, unbothered existence where you have universal health care, and $1 billion, hopefully. Like the people that we see as having perfect skin, they have financial security and regulated nervous systems, and great diets, and they're not struggling, and
Low inflammation.
low inflammation, no redness, no hyperpigmentation, this, that, and the other thing. And if you want to get literally, truly technical, yes, they look like they have no pores. They look like they have no blemishes, this, that, and the other thing. They might be, bouncy, plump. And oftentimes an artifice because they're spending lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of money to get fillers, to get laser, to get threading, to get this, that, and the other thing for the perception of health and wealth, right? Health and wealth are intertwined when it comes to the beauty industry. And it's so much genetics, but it's also just a larger structural narrative about how we take care of ourselves and how are taken care of. So yes, of course, everyone wants good skin. They want a lot of things.
I love that as like good skin is really just means good life and, achievement and safety. I want to get to more on the class dynamics that you touched on there. But first, what about the racial dynamics of all of this? I mean, for the longest time, there has been whiteness intertwined with quote unquote good skin. I wonder what you think of the racial dynamics today, especially as we see, for example, the explosion of K-beauty. Has that complicated the narrative? What do you think about that?
Totally. I mean, K-beauty is its own whole K-hole of information, if you will. It's so much of the conversations around it are treating it like a discovery, like I mean, oh look, the foreign land has given us this bounty. Oh yes, we are discovering this alien species of innovation. I find that kind of framework questionable, but also a lot of the times we're not really reckoning with the colorism within Asian spaces. Like people that are listening to this would not be able to see what I look like, but I am very fair-skinned in America, and when I go to Asia, I'm on the darker side of the rainbow, so to speak, because of how colorist East Asian societies are. And I mean, I can clock that and I can call that out, especially because I am East Asian, and I'm comfortable doing that because this is part of my legacy and inheritance. But colorism is kind of a universal mythology outside of beauty as well. It is deeply intertwined in it. And so much of the so-called beauty and skin innovations around good skin have relied on the testing subjects being darker skinned people of color, mostly working class or the working poor. And that has been true in almost every country around the world for centuries. It's been true in how wigs have been made. A lot of the times, the first wigs came from prison populations. And that has been true for skincare innovations like retinol and other skincare ingredients, and also pharmaceuticals. So much of the scientific innovations that we use every single day rely on the exploitation of dark-skinned people around the world.
And when it comes to colorism, there is such a class element to it as well, because of course, if you are a working class person who's working outside, you're exposed to the sun more. That's something that is going to show up, and, you know, it is often, you know, something that people are trying to avoid in certain cultures. We're going to take a quick break here. I'm speaking with Arabelle Siccardi, and we are talking about the body's biggest organ and how we take care of it, skin. More in just a minute on KUOW. Back with more Soundside. I'm Libby Dankman. We're talking about skin today and all of the thorny questions that emerge when we mix beauty standards with individual bodies. My guest is Arabelle Siccardi, the author of the newsletter You've Got Lipstick on Your Chin. So let's jump back in. My producer Gabby shared a 2018 essay by the writer Jaya Saxena, and it really landed with me. I wonder if I can just read a piece of it for you here. If wealth is our reward for a job well done and a life well lived, good skin becomes outward proof of goodness. Because we assume society is a meritocracy, we assume those at the top are there because they've done something right. And if they have straight teeth, toned bodies, and smooth skin, that must be right too. It's not that we think having bad skin is a moral failing, it's that we think poverty is. And I wonder what you think about that, and do you believe that we equate quote-unquote good skin with moral goodness?
Totally. But this is also leftover from the Enlightenment. This is not a new association that we've made. And this kind of judgment call has been linked to how our cities have been built, actually, because if you look into like hygiene laws and city ordinances, let's say just in San Francisco, for example, how people have been considered public nuisances has so much to do with visible displays of poverty or being unhoused. And we do regulate the idea of safety and health and beauty. They're all tied together. And when you don't align with a certain version, you are punished, you're penalized, and you can be imprisoned. And that's been true for a very long time in different ways.
Something that you said in Dazed magazine popped out to me, and that is, quoting you to yourself right now, the pursuit of beauty can be terrorizing. Flesh pulled back and cut open, bodies constricted, poison injected, hair burnt, skin bleached, our biggest insecurities magnified, our natural bodies sold back to us for profit. I mean, there's a lot of pain involved in this quest for perfection, but it has become so normalized, Arabelle. I mean, for example, you know, I get needles injected into my forehead for Botox occasionally, and I hate needles. I'm terrified of them, but I do it. And I just wonder if you could reflect on how all this violence and, I mean, frankly, you know, gore and all this beauty has come to coexist, or the violence has kind of become an accepted cost of the beauty.
Well, I think that women are used to having a high level of pain tolerance. If cis men had to endure even a single period, that cis women have had to experience, I feel like society's infrastructure would change drastically. The amount of suffering that we have normalized is astounding. Um, Violence is not unusual for women to experience, and I think that sometimes we navigate it as a journey that we can find victory in at the end. At least that's how sometimes I've seen it conceived by friends that are like, I need to do this and experience this, and it will transform me. And the destination will be worth the pain because I will be free of this suffering or questioning. And a lot of the times that's true. You know, I'm not going to dismiss I'm not going to dismiss the reality that getting surgery or shots or doing this and the other thing can be affirming. I do believe that for so many people, access to medical services and to beauty services is a form of gender affirmation. And that is true regardless if you're trans or not. Getting hair plugs is a gender affirming service, regardless if you're cis or trans. We conceptualize violence as like this bad thing or this evil, but sometimes it's like if it didn't have pain or risks, then like wouldn't everyone do it? Like we haven't innovated a painless transformation yet. And maybe they will, and there's probably lots of money going towards that. But I think having a barrier of entry is kind of safe.
I wonder if you think that modern day looks maxers, which has become sort of that male coded space where they're trying to perfect either their muscle tone or even their jaw lines. There's I can't tell how real this trend is, but the like hammering your jawline to try to make it more masculine, heteronormatively masculine looking. Do you think that they are pioneers of equity in the beauty and violence space?
I
or
love
the
that
beauty
you
and
asked that
pain
question.
space. Yeah.
Love it. No, they're not pioneers in anything. I will say that the writer Grace Byron did a really incredible essay right on this exact subject for GQ, and it's called Let Trans People and Looks Maxers Change Their Bodies. I don't think Grace came up with that title, but Grace is a trans writer speaking from like her own specific experience and having this conversation around looks maxing and the plastic surgery question and agency when it comes to beauty. And I encourage people to read this and to really weave in a more expansive conversation around feminist politics and agency and beauty and privilege and the right to change your bodies. A lot of the times people police the idea that you should have a right or to even change these things. And I'm like, just because you wouldn't do it doesn't mean someone else shouldn't be able to. I think when we create punishment dynamics within this conversation, where if this then bad, we're limiting the reality of human experience. And I just don't think that policing other people's bodies is something that we have to stand up for.
How do you think about consumption when it comes to skincare? Because technology is always changing. There's a new, set of red light masks that we're supposed to be getting to wear for hours a day. It can be really hard to resist the allure of a new toner or some type of elixir to put on your face. How do you think about, sort of how consumption and beauty are inextricably linked?
It's so funny you asked that because I literally have a red light mask like next to me right now. I use it every single day when I answer this. So I'm going to contextualize that I have way more stuff than the average person because of my job. And even saying this, I encourage people to use one less thing. I don't think that you have to create like this martyr narrative where you have to throw out everything and, DIY your own products. By no means must you do that. I think it's important to just listen to your own body and to the science available because innovation is always happening. and to just be critical of what's being presented to you in terms of what you need to buy. There's always going to be people that are going to invent ways to exploit you. And it's really up to you to figure out what works for your body and your skin. And that changes all the time. What worked 6 months ago may not work for you now, and that's okay. A lot of different things might have happened in the context of your life. You might have moved somewhere, you have different water quality, you might be eating differently, you might be pregnant, your hormones change. All of that does factor in to the products that you use on your skin. All right. I think that consumerism has so much to do with insecurity that you're falling behind, that you're missing some important discovery. And the reality is the best products for you are often the most boring and least interesting. They're not usually the newest thing either. Like almost every dermatologist that I've ever spoken to, they recommend the same extremely boring drugstore products. You're not going to take selfies with them or whatever, but they are efficacious, tried and true, and they don't mess with your system. You don't need to get the strongest acid. You don't need to do 15 serums. You don't need to have a 12-step or a 7-step or 5-step beauty routine. You just need to wash your face and use sunscreen. Fundamentally, everything else is gravy. So don't think too hard about what you're missing out on, and think more about what makes you feel good and cared for and protected and nurtured.
How do you hold on to your conception of beauty and the beauty industry as more like entertainment, or more like what you say about it's a mythology, it's a bedtime story, instead of getting sucked into feeling like it has an effect on your self-worth?
I think for me, what's helped is that I honestly self-survey a lot less than I used to. The context for this is I was a fashion blogger, like, before Instagram was a thing. I grew up constantly surveying myself and broadcasting my outfits and like my inner monologue and my everyday experience, my entire adult life and, teenage existence. And at a certain point, I just got really sick of sharing constantly. And the idea that simply because someone follows me on social media, they're entitled or know things about me that they don't really, right? And so I have come back to myself as a person who shares my work online, but I do not rely on like random internet acknowledgement for my value. And I don't really take selfies every day. I don't survey. I don't nitpick in the mirror. Like I need to do this, that, and the other thing to stay relevant. That doesn't really matter to me anymore. What matters to me is that the people I love in my real life, away from computer ecosystem, are cared for, supported, recognized, and loved. That I am cared for, supported, recognized, and loved. And that I have agency to pursue the stuff I want to do in the world around me. That might be on the internet, that might not be. But it has so little to do with like if I have a haircut or not, or if I've gotten Fraxel, or if I need a thread lift. Those things are purchasable transactions that might make me feel better for a while, but they do not define my worth as a human or as a friend or a wife or a teacher. I've done that work. And I hope and I wish that more people had resources to remove those pressures from their lives too.
There's nothing like the glow that you get after spending time with your family or with your dog or with your, best friends, right? And that's maybe something that, it doesn't come in a bottle, just to be corny about it.
No, but you can always clock a breakup haircut and a breakup flow, right?
Yes.
You really can. I wish we could bottle that because that would make us $1 billion, wouldn't it? Thank you for dumping your boyfriend. Congratulations. That is the next Ozempic.
I'm ready to go into business with you. Arabelle Siccardi, thank you so much. The author of The House of Beauty, Lessons from the Image Industry. Also, they write the great Substack newsletter, You've Got Lipstick on Your Chin. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. Don't forget you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 FM Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime online at KUOW.org or on your favorite podcast app.